Hey folks, Real Honesty with Charmithlin. I'm Charmithlin, and ECW talents. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Specifically some ECW talents that were used well in ECW, in the company for the most part, but were pretty much treated like jobbers everywhere else. I mean, and not in every single other company that they were in, but most of them tend to be from, most of it tends to be their WWE runs, however brief it was. And that's the thing is, I get that WWE, some people run better in WWE than they do in any other company. Some work better in Impact, some work better in ECW, some worked better in WCW, and whatever. Sometimes stuff just hits. Sometimes you don't work out so well in one company. But you have to wonder sometimes with and there was a lot of good talent that came through ECW. Now, some of these talents that I'm mentioning weren't such good talents. A few weren't. But a good amount of them were actual names that people know. And you have to wonder, why did they make it in ECW, or at least make it better in ECW than they did in other companies? And I'm here to talk about 8 talents, that didn't make it. I have 24 names here on this list, so I'm going to split it into 3 parts. So I really appreciate you guys for watching this. Let's get on with it. And I'm going to briefly discuss their runs in other companies, and I'm going to list why. So anyway, Sandman, his runs in WCW, TNA, and WWE. His run in WCW did get cut short because of a neck injury and this kind of stuff, and he was featured pretty well and actually drew some pretty good ratings from what I understand, according to interviews with him and ratings to back it up if you research that stuff. And in his run in TNA, I think he faced New Jack in a few matches. Like the hard 10 stuff where if you hit people with weapons, you would earn a point. It was really stupid. He faced Raven in and kind of like a revisit of their ECW feud. And his WWE run, might have actually been the best damn run that he had as far as outside ECW, because he was featured well enough, and he actually he didn't really have good performances because Sandman could never fucking wrestle to save his damn life. And sorry, if you guys are fans of him, cool, that's really awesome. I just never was. But he really couldn't wrestle for shit. But he did get over a lot. He was really, really over in ECW. He was pretty damn over in WCW for a while. In NWA TNA, because it was the Asylum, it was a smaller crowd, ECW-like. He was over enough there. I certainly won't fault the fact that fans, liked him and everything, and a lot of fans gravitated towards him, but there were also a good amount that didn't. But his WWE run might have been the most successful one, at least money-wise, that he had. But yeah, outside of ECW, I can't really name a ton of note besides what I just mentioned that he did. Now we go Sabu, WCW, TNA, and WWE. Sabu was treated, I don't want to say like royalty in ECW, but he was treated like a really good main event talent. And he fit perfectly for the ECW style. I never personally was a fan of Sabu. I didn't really think that he was that good of a worker. He was innovative enough with some of the stuff that he did, but a lot of it was a lot of it injured him more than it injured his opponent, and it seemed to be counterproductive. But especially his runs in WCW, he was there for like what, a little bit. He was on a few Nitros, he was on a pay-per-view, and that was it. He didn't last very long there. His TNA run, he had it was like a submission versus ladder match. Or submission ladder match or this kind of stuff. It was something with Ken Shamrock. It was overbooked like crazy, so I'm sure Russo was part of the reason. I don't remember Russo was part of the company at that point, but whoever was booking it booked a little, too goofy. His TNA run was a little weird because, he was there for 2002. I think he was there for a little bit in 2003. He did face Abyss in the Barbed Wire Massacre match at Turning Point 05, which was fine, but his TNA run, no, that great. He left in 06. He went to WWE. He did come back to TNA, when it was TNA, in 2010. Now it's Impact Wrestling, obviously. But his WWE run, he jobbed as Cena, tapped out to him, had a horrible match with the Big Show at SummerSlam. He just didn't really do much. He really didn't do all that much. Because if you take weapons out of the guy's goddamn hands and, put him in a traditional match, he couldn't fucking work. I mean, part of it is he beating his body up so much. Another part is that he was used to using those weapons. And the thing is his style really didn't work. So it's kind of a shame about it. I mean, it's like, was Sabu the worst talent in the world? No, I just never saw the big appeal with him. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. You guys are ECW fans? Cool. Keep watching. Not going to knock you guys for liking ECW. And Nova, a.k.a. Simon D in WWE, and I'm going to talk about his WWE run. He was booked like ridiculous. He was booked like a fitness guru, yet he wasn't really in that good a shape. And he didn't last very long. He was treated like a damn comedy jobber. Now, apparently he had backstage heat on him for being kind of an egotist. And Cornette and, his former friend, I guess, Kenny Bolin, have a lot of things to say about him. But yeah, he was booked well enough in Nova as far as like being innovative with offense and a pretty good worker. Outside of that, good God, he was treated like such a comedy joke. And then Balls Mahoney, his WWE run. He did start out in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which worked pretty well. I mean, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, the thing is I enjoy some of it, and when they put more of it on the network, or I get some of the stuff from Jim Cornette, from Jim Cornette's website, because I've been meaning to get a couple of those shirts. Balls Mahoney worked well in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, what little bit I saw of him, and he was perfect for ECW. Absolutely perfect. I mean, used that chair and wore those chair shots on his head, and just so much brain damage he did to himself. And he wasn't the only one. There was a lot of others. But his WWE run, my God, he was featured on the December to Dismember pay-per-view. I don't think he was featured on that many pay-per-views after that. I don't know if he was featured on another one. Balls Mahoney he was a good enough worker. He actually was. He didn't really need to do the hardcore shit. But the problem is he got so used to it, and people got so used to seeing him do it, they didn't want to see him work a traditional match. See, his WWE run was pretty much bad. He got paid well, I guess, but he didn't really get utilized all that well. And now we go to Just Incredible. We are at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We are at the 5th talent. I'm just trying to keep track of this stuff so I don't go over 8. Just Incredible. His WWE run. His TNA run also. He had that series with summer series with Jerry Lynn, which was fine. And I don't think he really did all that much stuff. So yeah, you could count that, but at least he had a good series of matches with Jerry Lynn. Can you name one thing that he did in WWE that was relevant? He was part of X Factor. That's about it. He was part of the ECW revival for a little bit. And this is nothing against Just Incredible, who actually is a really good worker. But he was treated so much better in ECW. He was booked well. He was booked like a great heel. He got great heat. He put on great matches. He was not allowed to do any of that shit in WWE in the short time that he was there. Now, yeah, part of that could have just been creative, not knowing what to do with him. But the guy, especially in 2001, coming off the stuff that he had been doing in 2000, in 99, 2000, and 2001, the incredible, very early 2001, because ECW only had one pay-per-view then, at the beginning of January, he was doing incredible work. And they did nothing with him in 2001. 06, I get it. Maybe they just didn't want to use him. But in 2001, and I'm not the biggest Just Incredible fan. I don't hate the guy. He's not on my top 50, not my top 50 best list. But he's a really good worker, and was a really good heel. And I'm glad his health seems to be, in check. And he seems to be doing better. That's great, because I heard his health wasn't all that good. So I'm really glad to hear that. And he seems like a very likable guy. At least in interviews I've seen. But he could have been used so much better, especially in 2001. It's a shame. It's a little bit criminal that how much talent they had in 2001. They failed to use them right. And now we move on to number 6. Well, of the 8. Jerry Lynn. Why? Why didn't they use him better? Why? He was mainly featured on Sunday Night Heat. He was I think he was brought in 2001. Had a Sunday Night Heat match with Rob Van Dam, and that should have continued their series of matches. They're incredible, probably the best matches in ECW history. The matches of Lynn and RVD had. Absolutely amazing. The ball busting moves, the great stuff that they did, the high impact, the flow of the match that they had, the great stuff. Your stuff in TNA, less so. I mean, that 2011 Bound for Glory match, not all that good. At least I think it was 2011. Yeah, it was 2011. That wasn't that good. It was 11 or 12. But anyway, the whole point is that Lynn, so hot at that point. He could have been used greatly. Could have been a good contender for the IC Championship. They didn't have the US Championship at the time, or at least they retired at some point. He could have been a good contender for the IC Champion, for a lot of championships. Maybe not the World Championship, WWE Championship, that kind of stuff. Part of it could have been because of the invasion angle, but I just think Jerry Lynch could have been used a whole lot better. He was used great in ECW. I mean, really, really good. Because the guy's style fit ECW so well, and he was able to show a different, faster-paced, well-wrestled style. I mean, him and RVD had such tremendous impact with the moves and the matches that they had. It's such a damn shame they didn't use Jerry Lynn better. Sadly, he had to retire without having a really good, proper WWE run. I'm not saying he needed that, but it would have been nice because he was really good. Really, really good for a number of years. And now Tommy Dreamer, his WWE and his TNA run. I love Dreamer. I think he's a really good guy. I don't think he should have been wrestling in 2015. I know he loves it. Cool. Whatever. His life. Some later interviews with him, though, his brain is just beat up. And it's sad because he loves wrestling so much and he's done so much stuff to his body. It's just sad. But anyway, his WWE run, I mean, he was brought in like right away with ECW, and he was used okay, but most of the time he did this like goofy thing for a number of weeks where he did stupid shit just to get over, stupid shit like on dares, drank a cup of tobacco spit, tobacco chew spit. And I'm sorry, I almost threw up thinking about it. But he would do that kind of stuff. He was hardcore champion at one point, I think in 2002, and he stuck around the company for a while. He wrestled some. He didn't make a ton of appearances on pay-per-views and stuff like that. When they did the ECW Arrival, he was part of it. And he did win the championship in 2009, like, for about a month and a half. And then that didn't work. Christian won it back, but his WWE run was very just weird. I mean, he's a good company guy, and he always did the right thing and everything. And from what I heard, people seem to not really have anything bad to say about him. But it was just sad because you thought he could have been used a lot better. I mean, a lot more pay-per-views. I know that his work did start to deteriorate, which happens with everybody with age and mileage and stuff like that. But he could have been used a lot better than he was. And it's a real shame that he wasn't. His TNA run also, oh boy, EV 2.0. Fucking Dixie Carter coming up with that stuff. Or somebody came up with that kind of stuff, and Dixie Carter said, yeah, it's a good idea. My parents will give the money. Seriously, 2010 and 2012 actually had some really good matches in Impact Wrestling. But creatively, it was a goddamn mess. 2012, Claire Lynch, anybody? But Dreamer wrestled for a bit, and then he was in an agent role and getting paid a whole lot less. And then he made other appearances in Impact, and in TNA, and then when it was Impact Wrestling, then went back to WWE and would use a little bit. It's just he does a House of Hardcore stuff, and he still wrestles. Okay, cool. I wish that they would have used him better at WWE specifically, because he was good enough for it. He really was over. Fans did react for a number of years to him. And they just never seemed to capitalize on it like they should have. I'm not saying he should have been WWE champion. Give him a run with the IC strap or the US strap or something like that. Especially after you got rid of the Hardcore Championship. But anyway, that's enough of that. So now I'm going to go with that. We're going to go to Raven. Let's see. 1, 2, give me a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, we're going to go to Raven. I just want to make sure I wasn't going over that. Otherwise, I'd say, wait, we're going to do 9 wrestlers. Going to finish up with the 8th wrestler, which is Raven. His WCW and especially his WWE run. His WCW run with the Flock was actually great. The problem is they only gave him the U.S. title for 1 day. And then when they disbanded the Flock, they had him feud with Perry Saturn, team with Perry Saturn, and they didn't use him for almost like about the last few months of his contract. And I've never been the biggest Raven fan. I mean, his TNA run was fine. I made him NWA World Champion. He was featured in enough top tier feuds. I'm not going to, sure, maybe the second part of his run. I'm not going to talk about that kind of stuff. But he should have been used so much better, especially in WCW. Because his character could have fit really, really well. The problem is creative at that point had no idea what to do with him. And then WWE, good God. I mean, yeah, he was Johnny Polo. I'm not going to talk about that. Besides going through the window of his, besides going through his window during the Hardcore 3-Way with Big Show and Kane at Mania 17, name one thing that Raven did that was relevant, that they allowed him to do. Name one. They didn't really use him all that well. He had a Sunday Night Heat 7 Deadly Sins storyline that he was starting to do. And then they dropped him after a ninja, a girl that was in black, and everything, helping him. After that got dropped because Raven got fired and then went to TNA and had his incredible run there, which was a really good run for him. But you just think about a guy with that much intelligence and a guy who was that over. WWE, especially Vince McMahon, did not get the Raven gimmick. They did not get it at all. He's a good enough worker. He was still good back then. I mean, sure, if you brought him back now, I'm sure he's in quality shape for being near 50 or just over 50, but they should not try to do an ECW revival again at all. Yeah, it's just, you think about that, so I'm going to leave that off at 8, but you think about all the great talents that I mentioned there. And I mean, no, not Sandman. I didn't even care for Sandman, nor did I care for Sabu, but if you guys did, cool. But some of the guys I mentioned, it's criminal they weren't used better in bigger companies, and nothing against ECW. As much as it grew, and their pay-per-view, and their pay-per-view audiences, and their audiences grew, live attendance grew, they had the money troubles and all that, we won't go into that. But you just think about all the talents that I mentioned. Even trying to find their positives and accentuate that, WWE couldn't do it, and Impact Wrestling couldn't necessarily do it. Except with Raven. They did do well with Raven, I will give them that much. And they did well with Jerry Lynn. But anyway, that's what I gotta say. Do you agree? Do you disagree with what I said? Are there any ECW talents you can think of that I didn't mention? Like, share, comment, subscribe. My Twitter link is in the description. It's been Real Honesty with John Ritlin. I'm John Ritlin. I will see you soon.